Hello, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to an LEC video, of course, being the breakdown of week 6. If you guys are new to the channel, hello, welcome. We're going to name some awards out there for, of course, our current standings right now in the LEC. Some crazy things happening this past week, and I cannot wait to break it down for all of you. A quick, of course, little summary, a few things here and there. G2 coming back after their loss to Origin last weekend. They remain on top. They remain king. They remain passively aggressive. You know, they still get caught out from time to time, but still so dominant. Alongside that, Fnatic, are they back is the real question. They did what they had to do. 2 impressive victories over Origin, who was on a 5-game winning streak with G2 included on that win streak. They end that streak, and they also take down Vitality, the number 2 team in the league. They beat the hottest team besides G2, and they beat the best team besides G2. Is Fnatic back? They could not have done any better this past weekend, and the playoff hopes are certainly alive for that team. Schalke looking very disappointing. We'll break them down later on. And then very lastly, I think it comes down to the question being asked for that top 6, those final 5th and 6th place spots. SK, Origin, Fnatic, who is it going to be that reigns on top? But as always, let's hop into our first category, guys, the teams of the week, and it's going to be just 2 of them for now, that being Fnatic and Misfits. Now, first of all, Misfits, they had to have this weekend just like Fnatic, and that's why both these teams actually nailed their slots here. Actually, let's hop into Fnatic. First of all, their game over Origin was absolutely dominant. These guys from start to finish, a very, very dominant game. They have now solidified the strategy, right? I think Nemesis looked very solid as well, at least in one of these games this weekend, but they have solidified the strategy of it comes down to feed Reckless, hope Nemesis keeps up, and Hilly and Brox, I really do believe their communication has gotten so much better on these ganks, on these paths to feed Reckless. They do so from the very start against Origin. Against Vitality, though, a bit shaky, right? It went a bit later for this game. Some misplays around some later objectives, especially when you have Jactroll able to lick away an Elder Dragon, but then Fnatic take the Baron crucially, right? This game could have gone back and forth. Let's not doubt this. Attila was doing a great job of isolating Reckless as much as possible, but then Fnatic was doing a great job of also isolating and bullying Mowgli early on. This game was beautiful to watch. It certainly could have gone either way, but it goes Fnatic's way, and they go a 2-0 weekend very, very impressively. And then a Misfits lineup who continuously takes games we would probably say later than they should. They're not a splice, but this weekend it did work out for them. Wins over SK and Origin in 2 different fashions there, but a team so crucially that won those games, right? They had lost 5 of their last 6. They were in desperate times. The 2 wins this weekend keep them on top of the teams they beat, that being SK, that being Origin. I think SK, when it comes to that scoreboard, what I saw in that game, it was not near as close as the scoreboard might have foretold you guys, especially in the back half of that game. It was 1 Baron and 1 team fight 1 in favor of Misfits, and that game was blown pretty much wide open, but still a great presence by Febby. I'll talk about him later on. Not the best overall scoreline, but his overall presence in that lane has been pretty dominant and a great weekend from him. Alongside that, their game against Origin, though, we saw kind of the old Misfits, right? A continuous struggle for Soaz, especially early game, but eventually fighting that back as well. They win some crucial objectives, and they luckily do take that game, but certainly a lot closer game I saw out of Origin than I did see versus SK. Either way, though, Fnatic and Misfits doing what they needed to do as we approach, of course, week 7. Again, not going to get much easier for a lot of teams out there as they fight for those top 6 places. On top of that, though, of course, our MVPs of the week, there's definitely a far number of them, but I got to go with just 3. First of which, I think Broxa. This guy had a stellar weekend. He's been certainly on the up and up, I would hope to say. Kind of a up and down roller coaster for a lot of these Fnatic guys out there. They've done a great job, right? It'd almost be too easy to say that Reckless was the MVP this week. I think it has to be Broxa in terms of getting him fed early on, and Nemesis also had a pretty solid split week. I would say Nemesis was the MVP of one game and Reckless the other, so that's why I can't give it to one of those 2 guys. Broxa, all in all, though, a very, very solid weekend, especially on Nocturne. Be able to use that as well. You couldn't usually utilize this guy very early on, and Broxa finds a way to do so. They snowball those games as well, and I think him alongside Hill is saying that communication and that synergy is certainly coming to form this weekend, and hopefully the momentum they did need. Now, alongside that, I could name a lot of G2 members out there, but I really do think this weekend alone, we saw Yanko struggle a little bit in one of those maps, as well as Perks. That aggression sometimes bites him back. All in all, though, Caps was the overall consistent player for this roster. Yes, they still had 2 pretty dominant games, pretty lopsided as well. The team is certainly not weighing any worse than they were after their loss to Origin, but Caps still carrying this team, I think, had 2 stellar performances out of him. And then very lastly as well, I think it's Febby. You know, scoreline-wise on his Aurelia, not the best, but still his presence overall definitely won them those 2 games for Misfits this weekend. I think Han Sama also had a solid weekend alongside him, but these guys certainly carrying this roster right now. Febivin had a stellar weekend. But on top of that, of course, our plays of the week, and there are a few for you guys. The ultimate one I have to show first, right? This is actually stellar. This almost turned, if it had turned the game, how crazy would it have been? Either way, still crazy. It's Jactroll on Tahm Kench, one tongue, one Elder Dragon.
Dodge. He's trying to dodge everything.
They take this fast. Jizuke on the flank, though. The vision is here. Oh my God! Gets it! What? There is no summoner spellbook. There is no smite. Jactroll on the Tahm Kench.
And then, you know, the Year of the Duck was a thing for a little bit. I think it's going to continue to be a thing. We still saw Nuke Duck trying his one-hit potential there, this time on LeBlanc, though he had no idea he was on a ward, and Fnatic take full advantage.
Where he's going to go.
You're on a ward.
Goes over
Get
the
him
wall.
this time.
Reckless knows what's coming. Oh, they're
This
baiting.
is not good.
This is rude.
Reckless is like, oh, I'm going to look tasty. Look at how I stand next to this wall, setting you up for the perfect flash distortion.
No, no, no. There's four
Says,
people coming to you, buddy.
Poro.
Nemesis has exhaust. There's just nothing.
Surprise! Here we go. Goodbye to Nuke Duck. Can't dodge the Acathian range.
And then speaking of one hit or one combo, one trick potential out there, it's actually late game Jizuke on Echo, bringing it back. You know, will we see this pick more often? I don't know, but it was actually Vitality over Splice. Late game, little one combo, one kill for Jizuke.
It's just yet. If Splice want to hold on for anything, it is that. But now Vitality with 4 members in the bottom lane. Jizuke escorting the wave in mid, getting ready for the pick onto Kabi. Will he go for it? He will.
The stun does not even gonna be needed. That echo damage is disgusting.
And I do have 2 underwhelming teams for all of you this weekend. Surprisingly enough, Rogue, who has obviously no expectations. I still think going to be a team out there who can take games off some of our top 6, top 7 teams out there and force them out of playoffs. So they're gonna play that upset role no matter what. But what I saw this past weekend was arguably still one of the worst weekends I saw out of them. First of all, against Excel, if you guys watched this, it was certainly a matchup, right? 2 of our bottom teams in the league currently. It was going to be arguably probably not going to be a best matchup we've seen no matter what, and they certainly lived up to the expectations being so low. This game should never have been so close, and I say so kind of half-heartedly. Unfortunately enough, it was Rogue who had a great start to the game, right? Some great pressure there by them, and they snowballed this game out of control. Until about 33 minutes in, we saw some plays I never hoped to see out of HeQ and Senkux again. Not even borderline aggressive plays. These are borderline just stupid plays that you never imagined pro players would make. I think the casters had a great way to commentate over this. It was just borderline stupidity. I hate to say that as well, but Rogue almost did, not even almost, right? The game was still a blowout. They had such a significant lead by that 33-minute mark, but they just, the fact they actually had that opportunity, they gave that opportunity, and if they would have lost that game, this never would have been forgotten. Hopefully we can toss this behind us as well. And against Splice, it was the exact opposite. They had a terrible start to that game. In typical Splice, in Splice fashion, they just drag it out, make it all the more hurtful and painful for this Rogue roster. Yes, Rogue take down XL, now the worst team in the league alongside them, but they lose to Splice in pretty terrible fashion as well. A pretty bad weekend out of Rogue, and I truly hope they can bounce back and be a little bit better. But it's actually Schalke who really disappointed me this past weekend, guys, with 2 of their players. Let's just roll into underwhelming players as well. This kind of coincides with Schalke and underwhelming players. And unfortunately enough, I have to say it, it's Memento first of all. I think this guy is probably going to get way too much flack for these 2 misplays. It was a mistimed hourglass in mid lane and also a misplayed blast cone to actually diffuse a possible gank for their side. I'll show you guys the clips. They were pretty bad, and I think he got probably too much hate for this.
That's for sure.
Decision making, and both of these teams hotly contesting themselves spots in the playoffs. Now, Abadagi will be in a little bit of pressure.
Wait.
Whoa, Memento! That's not a time to use your hourglass! That is not the time to push that button!
What the hell just happened? Memento! Ignat actually cancels the flank. And he doesn't actually come in from behind, I guess because he was worried about the knockdown ultimate.
I thought Ignat got knocked backwards by the blast cone.
Oh,
Yep.
that might have happened as well.
I think Memento got knocked into the blue buff, and look at this Ignat
Oh my god!
with the Devour!
Oh my god!
Oh!
Memento! Again, that's the second crucial mistake of the game.
Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, fans of the LEC, I plead with you, be nice.
But against SK, those were crucial plays. Now, would it have even changed it, right? The first one, the hourglass, certainly. The second one, the team fight. I don't know if that would have changed the events of the outcome of that overall matchup. Either way, that alongside Abadaga. I really did think he had a lackluster weekend this past weekend. You guys, of course, can leave a comment down below what players you think caught out early in at least one of those matchups, and then caught out frequently. His aggressive play style we have seen be very rewarding, but I think nonetheless, alongside that, his overall team fight abilities, I'm not sure if it was communication, but the damage output from this guy, as well as on top of getting caught out countless times, and that aggressiveness, you know, like we see with Perks and a lot of aggressive players out there, high risk, high reward. This past weekend was Abbedagge, I think, being a bit off of that play style, and unfortunately enough, it's Schalke dropping at least one of those games. So Schalke certainly still in the running. I think as well we've seen kind of a misplay there from Upset and Ignore. I think Upset and Ignore were two players I saw were outstanding these first 4 or 5 weeks, and this past weekend, maybe the past 2 weekends, we've seen a bit of a slowdown from this roster. So Schalke out there, I think a team that needs a bit of a momentum kick in the butt, alongside other teams out there. SK Origin kind of riding that same tide. We still have plenty of teams out there in the fight, and I still am pretty certain Schalke will be one of our playoff teams out there. This past weekend, though, did not showcase their best abilities. But as always, my name is Jake. Hope you guys all enjoy this LEC breakdown. As we approach week 7 next weekend, I'll be back here, of course, next Tuesday in 1 week's time to break it all down for all of you. So until next time, I'll see you guys then.